Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. Today we will talk about the SD-WAN deployment with Ipanema, especially what we mean by transparent hybrid WAN. In this presentation, I will show the step-by-step process to migrate to Ipanema SD-WAN with network diagrams. Before showing you the Ipanema way, let's see what the other vendors propose and what could possibly go wrong in their SD-WAN deployment. At first, let's have a look at this typical network architecture before SD-WAN. So you may still rely on a single MPLS network to interconnect your remote sites to the on-prem applications in the data center. And to access to SaaS applications, the internet traffic on the remote site may still be backhauled to a data center so that it can use the centralized internet access. Now here comes this first SD-WAN vendor who says, okay, SD-WAN is all about CPU replacement, let's do it. So ideally, during one night, by some magic, you just replace all your existing CEs by SD-WAN devices. Well, if you are a network engineer, you know that it doesn't happen in this way. The migration has to be a side-by-side process, and something like changing the CE router, you have to involve your MPLS network provider. So now we can agree that the SD-WAN deployment is actually a step-by-step gradual migration process. So I will roll back a bit to show you the intermediate step of this migration. At this moment, you will find that some sites are already deployed with SD-WAN device, while the others are still remaining with the original MPLS-CE. By doing this, actually you divide your network into two routing domains. The first one is with the SD-WAN overlay, and the other one is still with the MPLS underlay. What can the issue be in this case? Well, depending on the routing capability of your SD-WAN device, you may face a potential communication problem between your spoke sites, because before your SD-WAN adoption in your MPLS underlay, you probably had the full mesh connectivity, which allowed your spoke sites to communicate with each other in a direct way. Now you just split your network into two routing domains, the SD-WAN overlay and the MPLS underlay. Now if this SD-WAN overlay site wants to communicate with this MPLS underlay site, it has to go by this SD-WAN gateway device in the data center at first. While before that, it had a more direct way, a more efficient way to reach this remote site. So this is really not ideal. Then the second SD-WAN player comes and he says, well, this time we won't replace your MPLS-Cs, but we insert a new SD-WAN box behind them. Will this work? Well, the truth is that the SD-WAN device is a layer 3 equipment. Once again, depending on the routing capability of your SD-WAN solution, you may have to redesign your IP plan on all your sites. Let's just take the example of this remote site. So all the devices on this LAN network have to change from the previous IP plan to the new one. Also, their default gateway will change from the previous MPLS-CE to the new SD-WAN device. This also implies that you have to reconfigure the DHCP server in your data center. What's more, there will be more changes in the data center because you just inserted a layer 3 device into an environment where there are some existing routing protocols. At first, you need to change the IP address of your layer 3 core switch, and then its new neighbor becomes your SD-WAN device. With this kind of change, and maybe sometimes the bad luck, you would possibly cause some service interruption. Besides the IP redesign issue, you could face other difficulties. For example, what does your SD-WAN vendor propose as overlay topology? Is it hub and spoke only, or it can be full mesh? Even if it can be full mesh, does it impact your SD-WAN box performance? What is the maximum terminal number that it supports? Think about the scalability, because today you may have only 100 sites. But if tomorrow your site number doubles, can it handle 200 or even more IP secternals? Then when this vendor provides the SD-WAN overlay, how it is compatible with the class of service that is provided by the underlay MPLS. At last, that the SD-WAN device is a layer 3 equipment, so how can they handle the high availability? If you have to provide 2 devices for the HA, how much does it cost? So you have seen the limitations, the difficulties that you could face in a real SD-WAN deployment. Now let me show you the Ipanema way, and then I will let you decide if it is much easier to move to your SD-WAN with Ipanema's approach of transparent hybrid WAN. Let's take always the same network diagram, but this time what will change is that we can propose a layer 2 transparent integration mode. It means that we can configure some network interfaces to be in bridge mode. In this mode, as you can see that the one-side device and the LAN-side device keep their original IP address. Also, the existing routing protocol is not impacted and they keep always the same neighborship. What we will ask is maybe one more IP address in this subnet for the management use, so that the device can communicate to the SD-WAN orchestrator, and it can also communicate with other devices on the remote site to measure the real-time end-to-end performance. And as we work in layer 2 transparent mode, which means that we do not change any underlay routing and we haven't yet built our overlay, you can really deploy your SD-WAN at your speed side by side. Also, as we do not change your IP plan, you do not need to involve your MPLS provider in the SD-WAN deployment. During this phase, you can already benefit from the end-to-end visibility provided by Ipanema SD-WAN to measure your application performance. And also, Ipanema QoS is in place to protect each user session so that the user experience can be guaranteed. Now let's move on to the second phase to activate the internet overlay. We will start from the data center. First of all, there will be a minor change to move the cable from your core switch to our SD-WAN device. On this newly added interface, we will use the router mode, which means that we will activate a virtual router on this new interface. From a point of view of IP, you will find that the LAN side core switch, the one side MPLS and the LAN interface of a virtual router are in the same IP range. As we just introduced a new virtual router into the network, you need to create a new neighbor relationship between your core switch and our virtual router, so that we can import the underlay routes from the core switch and also export the overlay routes to the underlay. At last, just keep in mind that this IP address is moved from the core switch to the one side of our virtual router. Now the data center is ready, let's move on to the remote sites. It's still the same idea of gradual migration. When the new internet access is available on a site, you can activate the overlay on it. First of all, you need to connect the internet box onto your SD-WAN device. As you can imagine that this newly added interface will work in router mode. On your internet box, you will probably get an IP address like this, 192.168.1.1. This is perfect because my virtual router here will separate the existing LAN network from this new internet interconnection. Also, you will have probably the DHCP server service on your internet box, so that my one interface here will automatically get a new IP address. From the SD-WAN orchestrator, it will also learn where the hub site is so that it can initiate the new IP secternal to establish the overlay to pass the VPN traffic. Also, SD-WAN will enable local internet breakout so that the internet traffic will be sent directly to internet without being backhauled to the data center anymore. Then it's the same procedure to repeat in other sites. So you wait for your internet access, You connect it to the SD-WAN device, it gets an IP address automatically, it sets up the IPsec terminal, and it enables the local internet breakout. As you can see, this is really a gradual migration divided into two phases. And in each phase, you can just deploy your SD-WAN side by side without being a big bang project. And as you avoid redesigning your network, it's really a risk-free migration. Now let's sum up the benefits of Ipanema Transparent Hybrid WAN deployment mode. So we recommend the bridge mode on existing MPLS because it requires no network redesign so that you can keep your existing configuration. Also, by using bridge mode, it doesn't need creating overlay terminals on MPLS. So you do not need to worry about the IPsec terminal can impact your SD-WAN box performance. Also, you can benefit from the full mesh that is already provided in your underlay. Being layer 2 transparent means that you are also compatible with the underlay services, including your operator's class of service. Another advantage of the bridge mode that it can enable the fail-to-wire or the bypass feature to avoid adding a second device and consuming a secondary subscription. At last, during the phase 1 deployment, once the DC is installed, you can benefit immediately from the application visibility and the QoS control, even on the sites that are not yet deployed with your SD-WAN device. Then we recommend using router mode on internet transport. At first, it will enable the local internet breakout so that you can access to your SaaS applications more efficiently. Then by adding internet into your WAN network, you will benefit from hybrid WAN. At first, you get more resiliency because you have multi-link right now. Then you can steer different traffic onto different WANs according to your SLA. Also, this will allow you to use MPLS and internet in an active way so that you can increase your bandwidth on the site. On the router mode interface, you can automatically create the overlay VPN. Also, thanks to our virtual router, you can manage the underlay and overlay routing with some dynamic routing protocols. At last, you can even create IPsec terminals to some external gateways. For example, some other firewalls or routers which act as IPsec gateway. Or you can create terminals to some IaaS platforms such as Azure, or you can create IPsec terminals to some security web gateway like Zscaler, Palo Alto, Prisma Access. Well, this is the end of my presentation, and I hope that you find it well explained what the limitations of other SD-WAN vendors are, why we invented the idea of transparent hybrid WAN, and how you can move to your SD-WAN with a gradual and a risk-free path. As InfoVista, our slogan is Know Your Network. However, I believe that we go far beyond that. Control your network. Okay, I guess I will see you next time.